Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I've got, I guess, kind of a first impressions. I don't mean to skip that, but also a use video, a field test to do on this. This is the Benchmade Crooked River, and as you can see, it is not a small knife. Let me show you the secondary knife I've got in my pocket for scale. I don't always do this, but if you look at the comparison between the Spyderco Native 5 and the Benchmade Crooked River, you will see that the Benchmade Crooked River is gigantic in comparison. Really, really big knife. I was curious when I got this. You might have seen I recently also got a Spyderco Subvert, or as I like to affectionately call it, the Danger Banana. And this knife is almost exactly the same in length as the Spyderco Subvert, which is up to this point the biggest knife that I own. This knife, again, is being borrowed from my buddy Kyle at DTOM Knives and Gear. And shout out to you again, Kyle. I appreciate him sending this for me to check out and review. And I wasn't going to be rough at all on this knife. I'm still not going to be crazy rough on it, but he said go ahead and do my typical field testing on it to make sure that it stands up. So this Crooked River comes in S30V blade steel. It has titanium and wooden handles with internal steel scales that have been hollowed out a little bit, milled internally for some weight reduction. It's running with an axis lock. It's got all the Benchmade typical goodies built into it, regular Benchmade clip. If I were to get a Crooked River, let me say this right now, obviously I still have a full review to do as well, but if I were to get a Crooked River, I wouldn't get the full size, just for my hands. I have relatively small hands. This is more handle than I need on a knife, even for like choking back and chopping. The way it's shaped, you will like this better if you've got bigger hands. So I was looking the other night when I first opened this up. There's some really cool options to do mini Crooked Rivers on the custom shop. I could do like an M4 one with carbon handles, and there's all kind of cool ways to spice it up a little bit. But this makes me really want a mini Crooked River. So if that's any testament to the knife, this is really good, because I can be a little bit iffy on some Benchmade models, and this is just really, really impressing me so far. I should say, so far, I have already cut a couple of boxes with this, just some Amazon boxes that I got other stuff in. I've done a little bit of paracord. I was wrapping a handle on a fixed blade, and so you'll see if you watch that Cold Steel Drop Hunter wrapping video, I was using this to cut the cord, and I think that's about it. Just, yeah, boxes, tape, and a little bit of paracord. So out here, like I said, I'm not going to go crazy, but I'm just going to cut some of this little stuff and then do a very minor chop test, just to make sure that this edge performs well. And let's pray it does, because this is Kyle's knife. So real thin stuff, yeah, no problem. Real easy. It's a little thicker. Push cut in. It's push cutting really well. Yeah, that's great. So for this type of stuff, I'm choking up right into the kind of foremost position on the knife, and I'm almost putting my finger past the jimping here, which is working really well. And then I just literally push cut in, and then you get through little bit by bit. This edge is actually, it's really thinner behind the edge than I would expect, especially for a knife this big and kind of overbuilt. It's really slicey. The edge is also very sharp. It's a good Benchmade factory edge. I like it quite a bit. I don't think that Kyle has sharpened this. I'm pretty sure it is still wearing the factory edge. I should say I'm not positive, but almost certain. Sweet, let's keep going. So yeah, went through that thick stuff, nice and easy. Find a good kind of middle thickness. Yeah, I like that a lot. That works really well. This spot here, I tested, I think 2 knives on already. So I'm gonna go down here to this fresh spot. This is dead. This is super dry and fairly hard. So let's give it a little bit. Yeah, it bites in. It gives me a really nice index. I'm hoping I'm doing this on a good angle. I can't see myself in the camera right now, but when I choke back on here, it's almost like the wood section of this handle is as much of a knife handle as most of the knives that I carry. This whole bolster is like bonus handle real estate. So I can literally get a full 4-finger grip on just this wooden section. And when I choke back there, the indexing to use the little bit of belly here, right where I want to chop, it feels really natural. I like that a lot. It gives me a really good positioning on the blade. It puts my thumb, frankly, right on the jimping. And this is nice, rounded, just like it tells me where my thumb is, but it's not aggressive jimping. And I appreciate that about it. If you know me at all, you know I don't really like sharp jimping. It drives me nuts. See my Benchmade Contigo review if you want to see me complain about some jimping. But yeah, it fits really well in that kind of indexing spot, and it gives me a great way to chop. I like that quite a bit. Yeah, that did really well. Let me turn the camera around and show this in some close-ups and talk a little bit more about my impressions of it. But I just wanted to make sure it was capable of this kind of stuff. If this was my knife, I would keep going and I would be way rougher on it. But I want to send this back to him. I'm going to wipe it down and it is going to be in the same shape that it came to me in. I don't want to be too rough on somebody else's stuff. And yeah, this is nice. Let me turn you around. All right, so as you can see, the craftsmanship on the Crooked River is immediately apparent when you feel this knife. Some Benchmades have different design philosophies, and that's apparent. Like this knife and a bug out couldn't really be that much more different. The bug out is a plasticky, ultra lightweight, very slim, slender, small, EDC focused, lightweight knife. This knife feels like a folding hunting knife. The real similarities between this and a bug out would be that they both have an axis lock. And I guess they're both S30V and they've got a butterfly printed on their blade. But that's really where it kind of ends. And I like that. I like that this feels like an old school hunting knife, kind of like a little bit buck-esque, kind of like a 110, where it's got some wooden handle scales, and it just feels solid and sturdy, and it's got a clip point, which I really, really like this blade shape, I'll say right now. But it's a little bit modernized. You've got S30V, which is a fine blade steel. The custom shop versions, you can do some really kind of out there nicer things. I think you can do S90V, you can do M4, and then I think there's even a Damas steel option on this one, which is a little bit crazy. But yeah, just a good modern workhorse of a steel. I really like S30V. We've got a G10 backspacer that's kind of a hunter safety orange, and then we've got an orange pivot collar to match it. It works really well. I like it quite a bit. So I'm going to keep using and carrying this knife before I do my full review. But I'll just say, like, my first impressions, I've had this knife in pocket 2 days in a row as a primary folder in my pocket, and I've used it for a fair bit of actual EDC stuff, and then just now out here outdoors. And this knife kind of makes sense to me. I get why this is a popular offering from Benchmade, and yeah, I wish that I had tried one sooner, because I'd probably own a mini one by now if I had already tried it. So I'll probably be getting a mini one soon if I really had to guess. I think that's in my future, because I really like this design. The only thing for me is it's just some big knives, if the handles are ground kind of neutral, or just like the way that the handles are shaped, they can still fit a lot of hands, and my hands are not large. I've got I wear medium-sized gloves, and my fingers aren't like super skinny, so I fit on a lot of knives pretty well. It's not like my hands are tiny, but I don't have large hands for sure. I'm not on the upper end of the hand size spectrum, and so like my Spyderco Subvert fits my hand really well, even though I've got a lot of extra real estate. This one, though, the way that this curve is shaped here, it feels much too big for my finger. So I don't like that I've got too much room to move around in there, and I don't frankly feel very locked in on it. The way the rest of my hand sits back here, I like that curve for these 3 fingers. I like where my thumb lands, but really just that one curve there is what I'm not totally sold on. So I think on the mini, with it being scaled down, if that radius is a little smaller, it'll just feel a lot more comfortable. And then I'll also say this knife is long in pocket. The handle on this knife is just, it is seriously long. And so when it's in my pocket, it just feels like it really fills up a ton of space this way. It's not overly thick in this direction, so it's not really uncomfortable. It's, for its size, frankly, not that heavy. Oh, that was close. Sorry. For its size, it's not that heavy. It doesn't really bother me in pocket, but I don't find it's necessarily more useful for me in what I would use this knife for to have it be this big. I think this is a great option if you're one of those guys who just has really big hands and a lot of knives are too small for. You'll probably love the size and shape of the full-size Crooked River. But for my uses, I think the mini would probably be the better option. And if I had a mini one in like M4 steel and the right material setup, it could be a great outdoor folder for me. This knife, frankly, is also a good outdoor folder. Like if I owned this knife, I would find reasons to pick this knife and carry it out with me, because I do think it's super cool and it's super nice. But yeah, that's got to be enough of first impressions. I don't want to jump into a full review here. I'll just say the size is bigger than I need it to be. And if it was a little bit smaller in the handle, it would feel more comfortable for me. It's just too much room to move around to really feel locked in. So take that for what it's worth. And yeah, thanks for checking this out with me. I'm glad I got to do a little testing. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this down real good when I get home, since it is Kyle's. And then I'll make a point to keep doing a little bit of EDC cutting with it as I keep it in my pocket these next couple of days. And yeah, I'll have a full review on this guy soon. But this has been my field test and first impressions of the Benchmade Crooked River.